Yeah, you know what's popping. It's Mellow back at you. And today we're going to do podcast, long format type shit. We're going to talk a lot about something that I mentioned in the Fat Joe video, which is basically when it comes to New York in the 90s, specifically the 90s, they was just giving away record deals, dog. It was much easier to get a record deal as a local New York rapper than it was to get a record deal anywhere else in the US that was not LA. And we're talking about the 90s right now. So if you were in some place like fucking Alabama, you know, Michigan or any place like that, it was infinitely harder for you to get a deal than if you was in New York. And we gonna discuss why. And it's gonna go kind of deep. I'm gonna try not to go too deep on certain shit. So let's just get straight to it, man. When hip hop was created in motherfucking New York. Kool Herc in like 1978 or something like that. I can't tell you the year. He pretty much laid the foundation with the block parties and doing the break beats and all that shit. Trust me, we not going to go super deep, so I'm not going to spend too much time in the 80s. But you got to understand that in the 80s, rap was thought to be a fad. But rap started to pick up traction. And the reason it began to pick up traction is because of the local New York rappers who were recording music, going to the studio, doing what they do, some of them without a record deal, and even then, just MCing on the block and all of that stuff, and then getting a shot from some producer and all that stuff. Like that's just what was going on at the time. Cats was really getting it on the block, really battling, really being MCs and stuff like that. But at that time, this is the thing you got to look at. At that time, the people who were record executives lived down the street. They live in another borough. They live in the same borough. Like, that's what it is. Like, you know, when you look at New York is a funny place. Cleveland, from my city, and I'm not going to say where I'm at, it's about an hour drive. It's about an hour drive. And it's something, I forget. I think it's like 70 something miles or some shit. I don't know, man. I don't know. But it's a long distance. We just gonna pretend it's 70 miles. That would make sense, you know, with the speed limits and stuff like that on a GPS. So it's about 70 miles. In New York, just to get like fucking, cause the shit is not crazy big like you think it is. They just packed in there. That's how come you see all the motherfuckers just so fucking busy all the time, and there's so many people just jammed into that motherfucker. It takes an hour, whether you on car or you on train, on bike, it don't fucking matter. It take an hour to get to another borough, and that borough don't be but like 15 miles, 10 miles. But it be the traffic, and then it be the process with the subways and shit like that. And the way the city is built. That's what make it so long. So like, you'll hear people, I had to mention that because you'll hear people say, oh man, but nigga, bro, it's like, you know, going to Queens from fucking, you know, the Bronx to Queens, like 2 hours. Yeah, it's 2 hours, but it's not 2 hours like, you know, a drive from fucking Columbus to Cleveland is like, you know, 3 hours. It's not that type of deal where you gotta lock in and be sitting, but it's not the same thing. And trust, these motherfuckers do that on a daily basis just to live. Like they be all over the subway system and et cetera, et cetera. So even with all of that, if a motherfucker is popping in the Bronx, and his name ring bells in the Bronx, if you from Brooklyn and you know somebody from the Bronx and you talk to them, they gonna know who that motherfucker is, and they gonna tell you shit can definitely carry over that way. And we talking pre-internet and shit like that. Yeah, of course I wasn't there, but you like, come on, man. Anyways, with all of that being said, my whole point in laying out all of that is that these record executives are basically in the same city. Like the ones that control most of the music all throughout the country, all throughout the world that's coming from America. So these people who are making this buzz in the street, you know, Rappers Delight helped break the door as far as making rap a mainstream thing. And people want to get, fucking Paula Abdul want to get a rapping cat on a fucking track. Let's find a rapper. Where are we gonna find a rapper? Well, hell, we're in a city full of fucking rappers. Let's catch the fucking A train, go to the ghetto, and look at the niggers rap. Let's go and look at the niggers. Oh, that's a good nigga. Like, you know, that's how they do. So, boom. You know, you got a lot of people getting opportunities that way throughout the 80s and shit like that. Now, I want to mention something because, remember I mentioned L.A. Too Short was rapping in the Bay, which is not LA. It's Northern California. He was rapping in the Bay in the 80s, but he was local. He was doing it independent. He didn't have a deal. He was doing it for years without a deal. The guy that we know is a super legend today was rocking independent for quite a while in the 80s, couldn't get a deal. Ice-T, first rapper from the West Coast with a record deal. You can go look up his story, see how he got his deal and all that shit. But he's the first rapper. What did they have him on? Think about what they had him on. They had him the first time you see Ice-T from, and this is just, I could be wrong on this. But the first time you see Ice-T is on Breaking. Rapping. Just got to keep it real. Look at Silly. Like, it's just what it is. At the time, you know, it was cool. But even for what he became, like, you know, he was like a street dude. That's just what it is. That's what the whole image was after that. Which that's who he really was. You know, I watched his, like, Beyond the Glory, you know, all that shit, whatever the documentary is that they be having, the Beyond the Music or Beyond the Music, all that shit. I watched that shit. But the B-boy shit and all that, that's some New York hip-hop culture shit that was going on locally that nigga in Ohio and motherfucking Florida, they don't know nothing about that shit until the record label signed a local nigga that lived fucking 4 blocks away from fucking Arista and Universal and all that shit. Until they sign him and then blast the shit around the fucking globe. That's what it is. That's how they end up breakdancing in LA and shit like that. That's what it is. So, with that being said, you know, NWA, so he's the first, and he actually started this gangster rap shit. You got to tip your hat and give it to him, man. He started this gangster rap shit. He was one of the first, if not the first. I'm pretty sure he was the first. Ice-T, gangster rap. Gangster rapping is really synonymous with LA. Just keeping it real. They really paved the way because guess who came after that? NWA in the late 80s. And they really broke the mold on the gangster rap shit. They took it to, you know, heights that niggas didn't even think it could go. So there you have that. That's what's going on in LA. But for every Ice-T in NWA, you got motherfucking 15 Grandmaster Cass, you know, the Fat Boy. You got all that shit going on in New York. They going crazy in New York. So now we look at that. That's so you get the gist of what I'm saying. Everything is coming out of New York for the most part. And why is it coming out of New York? Because motherfuckers is down the street. Now let's get to, you know, this Def Jam shit. You know, Russell Simmons, Rick Rubin, fucking Leor Cohen and all that. They come together. They make this label in New York as New York kids. This, these other people not really in the age bracket and they not really in the hood. They don't really know what's going on. They trying to come through in the suits to figure out what's going. They said, fuck all that. We could do this shit better than them motherfuckers. And they did. Guess what they did? They put on a lot of talent. Now, this is the thing. I done read the Russell Simmons Super Rich book and all that stuff, so I'm like very hip. Like, Russell Simmons, he was like really working the records for other types of artists before he even got to the rap shit. He was on some promoter shit, if I'm correct. So he already had a foot in the music game. But when he came together with the other two, he was like, let's put it together, And then they get all these artists. They get motherfucking Run DMC, which is his people, his fam. Then you get like, LL, which LL didn't come right after that. LL was like the little guy, when they first started out, because he was like a teenager and these is like grown dudes and shit like that. LL Super Legend had a crazy run, bigger than, like, really, I ain't gonna hold you, man. That's a vid that I'm gonna have to do. Why does LL, because I asked my Facebook this a minute ago, why does LL not come up in the GOAT conversation when he touched 3 decades and he was a prominent rapper within 3 decades? Now, granted, Hov has done the same thing because Hov is 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and even 2020. That kind of makes him transcend that. But I'm not saying that LL is better than Hov or that he even touching Hov. I'm just saying when we talk about the GOAT conversation, why don't his name come up? We're not going to go too deep on that. That's for another day. But Def Jam has all these crazy acts coming out of New York. And guess what? They are from the 5 boroughs. Every one of them is from the 5 boroughs. That's just what it is. It's all some super New York shit. And they become one of the biggest labels in the game. Guess what? When we look at rap, Run DMC is the first set of pop star rappers / like top tier mainstream rappers. I know niggas love Kane and Rakim. I know niggas love Kane and Rakim. I could go and look at the sales right now, but I don't have to. Run DMC was fucking shit up on that tip. Run DMC was getting on TV shows. Run DMC was doing crossover records like Walk This Way with Aerosmith. They was like that. That's just what it is. So, we get past the 80s. Let's just get past the 80s. When you look at all the rappers throughout the 90s and the rich history and stuff like that, remember the point that I'm trying to illustrate to you is that it was harder for an individual like MC Hammer or Master P, who both had to go independent and sell shit out their trunk for a certain amount of time to get a record deal. It took a lot more for them to get a record deal than, this guy be battling people on the A train every fucking week. You should come down and check him out at the fucking A train, because that's some local shit that you just get word of mouth. When P is doing that shit out there, P and MC Hammer. When Master P and MC Hammer are selling these records, they not battling niggas on the A train. They not rapping, for free in the park. No. What they are doing is taking their own money, going to a professional studio, and rap is so fucking easy now because even and check it out. I come from this generation, bro. I come from the generation of easy. I was rapping in my room, recording full tracks when I was like 11, 12. I'm in my 30s now. The barrier, and even then, the barrier to entry was still high at that point. We was just lucky to have a computer and know how to finesse some shit. That's just what it was for us. Now you don't even gotta finesse shit. You can make a whole album on your phone. Lupe Fiasco and a bunch of other rappers have done it. So, with that being said, the barrier to entry was a lot higher back then. You absolutely had to go to a studio. But guess what? I'm a producer. I make beats on Fruity Loops. I could sing you an MP3 via email and it'd be that smooth. You got guys who was making shit on the ASR drum machines and MPCs and stuff like that. Those joints back then was 1,000 minimum. So to even find a producer is a task by itself. Back in the early 90s, or even, man, at any point in the 90s for real, to find a producer, especially when you don't live in New York, is definitely a hard task, because who's really investing that type of money into that shit? Think about it now. Like, again, I produce. I'm hip to the whole producer scene. Right now, you got a 16-year-old who can make some shit that sounds close to whatever Metro Boomin is doing. These are just facts. When I was 16, I was dog shit. I was dog shit. Now we got so many tutorials. Now you can get all the hottest sounds for free. You could get the DA. It's just so different. It's just so different now. So even getting a producer back then was tough. It had to be a whole nother dude that was investing a lot. And don't let the nigga want to charge you for this shit. How much is he going to charge you for? Ain't nobody else you can really go to. Like, it's not 50 producers you can go to. So yeah, that's what it is. So they have to invest money. And then guess what? After all of that, they have to press up fucking tapes. We gonna pretend they didn't even they just went to motherfucking Kinko's and got some shit printed out on regular paper and cut it out or whatever. We gonna pretend they didn't even had nothing crazy. Cause even then, finding a graphic designer in fucking 92, like, cut it the fuck out. Just chalk it up. Just forget it. Forget about it. But they got the shit put on tapes. They did the manufacturing themselves. And what was the distribution? Niggas went to the streets. So they wasn't rapping in motherfucking Central Park or motherfucking, the A Train or no shit like that. These niggas had to put in a lot of money, which, don't get it twisted, some New York niggas was doing that too, to press up demos and shit. But they had to invest their money, and then on top of that, they had to get people to vote for them with their dollars. They had to fuck the streets up. They had to be them guys in their city, and shit might not have never went nowhere. And guess what else they had to do? They had to put their fucking tapes and mail them across the country to a motherfucking A&R that's gonna toss they shit in a fucking pile and say, man, I don't give a fuck about this shit. We get 80,000 tapes from niggas that's not from New York every day. And still go down the fucking block to sign another nigga. Still go down to motherfucking Flushing to sign another nigga. It's madness. Now, this is the thing that I mentioned in the Fat Joe video. I mentioned the Busta Rhymes, Big, and motherfucking Jay-Z. Jay-Z went to school with Busta Rhymes. I don't think Big went to school with him, but Jay-Z knew Big. And he knew him before he was rapping and all that shit. Let me not say he knew him before he was rapping, but he knew him before he popped. When you look at those three people knowing each other, and then it's a lot of other shit intertwined like that. Here's another example. If you watch the Roxanne, it's not a documentary. It's a movie or a series that she got on Netflix. I recommend you watch that. I don't give a fuck I don't give a fuck if you don't like 80s hip. I don't give a fuck. You need to watch that shit. It's dope. It's dope. But guess who's in that shit? Lil Nas. Not Lil Nas X, but Nasir. Nasty Nas. It was written Nas. He's in that shit. He rapped for her as a child in Queens. He rapped for her as a child in Queens. Who the fuck was Master P or MC Hammer gonna rap to in Oakland and New Orleans? Who was they gonna rap to? Come on, man. I mentioned because I did this video and then I cut it like in the middle, but I mentioned like, nigga, you still don't see a lot of rappers coming out of Alabama. I still never heard of an Arkansas rapper. Nigga, I named all the Alabama rappers I could think of, bruh. Fucking Yellow Wolf. So I'm gonna go through some shit real quick. Alabama, you got Yellow Wolf, you got Rallo Rodriguez, No Cap, Lil Soldier, Jackie Chain, Rich Boy. That's 6 rappers. I'm pretty positive if you are not from Alabama, you cannot name 3 more Alabama rappers. You cannot. So if you look at it, what's that nigga's name? I think YB and Namir is from Alabama, so that might be 7. But the whole point I'm making is, when you look at that, they got 7 people out of their entire fucking state that made it rapping. 7 people. 7 people. Look at Ohio. You know, I'm from Ohio. Let's go down to rappers. You got Ray Cash. He had Jay-Z on the remix. He from Cleveland. You got Bone Thugs. That's the first people you think of. So that's 2 right there. You got MGK. Boom, that's another one. You got Chip the Ripper and Al Fats. That's 5. You got Kid Cudi. That's 6. Ray Jr. had a Def Jam deal. That's 7. Is there somebody I'm missing? You got Q fucking Money. Glad I didn't forget him. That's 8. That's 8. You also got oh really? What's his name, bro? What's his name, man? I fucking know. Doughboy. That's 9. That's 9. You got Stally. He was signed to MMG. That's 10. And I really think the buck stops there, dog. Now, you see how I really had to go into my mental Rolodex to really get these niggas? Now, what I used to do, and I still do this on occasion, when trying to illustrate a point to younger rappers from these areas and stuff like that, you hear a lot of people say now that, like, you know, the internet is the way to get on. And I believe that it wasn't the case at a certain time, but now you really can get on through the internet. The whole SoundCloud wave has proved that. You can definitely get on through the internet. But there was a time, and it still is a time, where your physical location is paramount when it comes to getting a rap career. And to illustrate that, I say, man, I just named 10 Ohio rappers. I can name 10 rappers easy. 10 rappers easy that came out of Atlanta in the past 5 years. I can go crazy when it comes to naming Atlanta rappers because Atlanta has been having a run since 03. That's not what we talking about, though. We talking about New York. I named about 7 rappers from Alabama. I named 10 rappers from Ohio that was on. Bruh. As a matter of fact, I got to throw Rufus Black in there because Rufus Black, he was in the New York way. He did some big shit. So that's what? 11. But we don't got to go no deeper than that. If you look at New York in the 90s, you could pick a fucking year and just look at how many New York rappers drop. We don't got to do like, okay, we going through the whole decade and we going to name all the people. It'd be like 20 rap, bro. Like, come on, man. It's no competition when it comes to how many New York rappers was on in the 90s. Like, I could just, like, Cool G rap, Jay-Z, fucking Foxy Brown, Little Kid. Like, do I really got to go through the names, nigga? It's an endless amount of names when it comes to rappers coming out of New York. When I was talking about this shit, and when I mentioned that, you know, Fat Joe said it was harder than any of this shit because I was out passing out flyers saying, my name is Fat Joe Flo Joe. Come watch me at the Apollo. I fuck with Fat Joe, but let's break this down real quick. Let's really think about what he just said. The Apollo is in Harlem. Fat Joe is a Bronx rapper. You keep following. What does it take for Fat Joe to get from, you know, the Bronx to fucking Harlem? An hour to 2 hour train ride max. That's what it is. What is the Apollo? The Apollo is basically a tremendous talent show where people from all around the fucking world come and they do whatever talent they got. This is before America's Got Talent or any of that shit. And it was going on for decades. You should know about what the Apollo and what it is. But they go out, they do their stand-up routine, they go juggle, they go sing, they do whatever they do. Neo got booed at the Apollo. Neo with the career, he got booed. The R&B singer, Neo got booed at the Apollo. They boo you if they don't like you. They boo you if they don't like you. But a lot of people get their careers fucking with the Apollo. So I just did my Googles. If we look at somebody like Neo was born in Arkansas. His mom relocated to Las Vegas. And he had to do some maneuvering while being from Las Vegas, while living in Las Vegas, to get over to the Apollo to do the shit and to get a shot at the music industry. A flight versus a fucking train ride that niggas take just to get a fucking sub. Just to get a chopped cheese from a different borough. Just to go clap cheeks. Like, niggas in New York do this every day. So we talking about something where people come all the way from places like Las Vegas across the country to get their career. That shit was down the street for this nigga. And you telling me he was passing out flyers and all of that shit? Fam, I'm gonna keep it real with you. If you're a rapper, and I'm not talking about these new niggas because the game is different now, man. It's like you could just, you don't even got to be outside. You could just do videos, and that's the only time you got to be outside. You don't even got to perform. It's a whole different game now. But if you was a rapper in the 2000s, you had to pass out flyers. Everybody passed out flyers. When I was rapping, bro, we was cold with it. We had, dog, nigga had 800 million flyers. The nigga was even handing out CDs and shit. Ain't never get the opportunity you got. Which we'll get to that later. And it's not no jealousy shit. I don't give a fuck. I just had to make that point. Like, everybody done passed out flyers. It's not no big deal. That's not no shit to where it's like, nigga, I was grinding. Like, Rich Homie Quan was in fucking Atlanta really pressing niggas like at the gas station to buy a CD or rap for niggas and shit like that. So many niggas done did that type of shit, man. So many niggas done did that type of shit. That shit don't move me. It's like, congratulations, you have some grind in you. But guess what? It's 800 million niggas out here with some grind in them. And it don't get them to where it got you. So that's not the factor, my G. It's not the factor. You did your thing at Apollo. Congratulations, you did great. You got your career, you got your record deal, and it was all uphill from there, kinda, because, you know, I mentioned in the other video, the first album, you know, wasn't a smash. And then, you know, Terror Squad came about, and then that's when the whole wave came. But to say that was a million times harder than what? Harder than, I listed a bunch of people, harder than what MC Hammer had to do? Harder than what Master P had to do? I don't see it, dog. I don't see it. I don't see it. I just broke that shit down, bro. You had to go down the street. A place that people fly from Las Vegas to go to was down the street. Was down the street. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I really didn't even have to go this far in this podcast. The numbers alone, if I had just came in and said, look, in the 90s, there were approximately 78 New York rappers who dropped records in the 90s. And when you look at the rappers from all other regions, nigga, they probably eclipsed somewhere around the same point. The rest of the country that's not LA probably would eclipse, you know, New York. Probably not, honestly. Like, but, you know, it is what it is, man. So that's really what it is. You know, I really wish I didn't have like the signing shit going on. You probably heard that a little bit throughout this. But that's basically, I think I beat a dead horse like to a pulp, nigga. Matter of fact, I didn't. There's one thing I gotta touch on that I was talking about, which is this. What you never hear about when it comes to all of this rap shit, you hear about people who made it. You hear all the success stories. You hear about people who had a hit but fumbled the bag in some way to where they got fucked by their manager. They got fucked by, you know, the exec. They didn't look at the contract. You hear all of those stories. This is what you never hear. You never hear about the niggas that almost made it. You never hear the story about the niggas that was grinding. They was on the cusp of this shit and it just didn't happen. You don't hear that. You don't hear about the stories of, you know, because even then, like, I mentioned like Fat Al and stuff like that. And I mentioned Ray Cash. Like, you know, as niggas in Ohio, we wonder what happened. You know, because they was like, you know, Ray Cash had the deal. He was on. So he really don't count. But why was there no sophomore album? I listened to the mixtape he did. The mixtape was great. Why didn't he have a sophomore album? You look at Fat Al. What happened that the career just didn't continue? But even then, those are people who made it to the pinnacle. They got deals or they came close to getting deals, whatever it was. You know, Fat Al was on Madden. But even outside of that, you just don't hear about the people that don't make it. You don't hear about the people that don't make it. Now, granted, There are a bunch of people in New York who rap that didn't make it. I guarantee you there are, because the population is too big. Even then, I'm going to keep it real. This is the point that I'm trying to make, and this is the point that I was going to get to. When you are in a city, and this still is applicable to this day, when you are in a city like Atlanta, when you were in a city like now Detroit, and this doesn't apply to Detroit in the 2000s, and you're going to see why in a moment. When you're in a city like New York, those are the main ones. We could even throw a Houston in there. We could throw a LA in there. We could throw a Miami in there. We could throw a Chicago in there. And this is all for today, right now, not back then, right now at this moment. If you are in those cities, all you have to do is play the game in those cities. Throw Memphis in there. All you have to do is play the game in those cities. If you are a local rapper in Memphis and any of these cities that I just mentioned, and you really get hot, you really get to the pit, like you really get piping hot with this shit, the first thing that's going to happen, this is the first thing. There's a ceiling, and I'm going to talk about the ceiling in another video if I ever remember, but there's a ceiling that you will hit as a local rapper for any market that you're in. When you were in a market like Detroit, everybody in my city know. If you hit the ceiling as a Detroit rapper, bare minimum, you're going to be getting booked for thousands of dollars all throughout Ohio and in certain parts of Michigan. People are going to come to you with a bag to have you come and perform your local music in a different region. Also in those places, if you really get it popping like that, because if you're getting booked, somebody's also going to be approaching you about a record deal. Now, the record deal might be $30,000. The record deal might be $800,000. The record deal might be $1 million, $2 million, whatever it is based on your buzz. But you will definitely be getting offers at that point. That's what happens in these markets today. This is a fact. It's not disputable. And this is as a local rapper hitting the pinnacle. Now, what if you are from Bumblefuck, Indiana? Let's say you're from like Indianapolis or fuck that. Let's say you're from Gary, where Freddie Gibbs is from. And this is just a random city. There are a bunch of Gary, Indiana type cities throughout America, there's ghettos where niggas rap. No matter how hard you motherfucking rap in that city that nobody wants to go to, that's not an attractive place. It's not an attractive city like Miami. It's not an attractive city like LA, like to where like a tourist could be, oh, niggas really fuck with this shit out here. Nobody's coming there like that, bro. It's not that type of city. It doesn't have that type of traction. No matter how hard you rap, no matter how big you get locally there, it's not going to take you that far. Now, I know somebody is going, oh, man, like, bro, listen. I guarantee you, you niggas do not study the game like I have studied the game. Let me say this again for you niggas all the way in the back. You niggas have not did the due diligence and looked at how artists pop. You niggas have not looked at all, just trace niggas' origins the way that I have in the past. You niggas have not done the work I did. I'm gonna give you 2 examples. I'm gonna give you as many examples as I can, actually. We just gonna flash through it. Another name that I forgot to mention for Ohio was Trippie Redd. Shout out to Trippie Redd. He from the 330. Trippie Redd is from Canton. Nobody from Canton, and this is not no knock. Don't like, oh man, this nigga's hating. This is not that. This is just the truth. Because if it wasn't true, somebody would have made it a different way. Somebody else would have made it by now. Trippie is deep in his career now. He's not no new nigga. He's deep in his career. Nobody is gonna make it from Canton rapping in Canton. They gotta have some crazy Chief Keef, oh, this nigga shot 4 cops and beat the case type shit. They gotta have some shit like that happen for motherfuckers to really start looking into that specific artist. Trippie Redd went to Atlanta while he was rapping. He was rapping on SoundCloud and stuff like that. And he had a little wave on SoundCloud. But he went to Atlanta, hooked up with Lil Walk, got a deal. You know, he had the whole shit where he was running with like a label, the same label that had 6ix9ine signed. They was doing his visuals. They was doing all types of shit. You could basically call who he was with as far as that label or collective like a rapper incubator, because again, they made Trippie and 6ix9ine. And both of them still have careers today. Both of them still have careers today. But he does not get that opportunity if he stays his ass in Canton. That's just 500,000. That's just what it is. He's not getting the same looks. He's not going to be in the same rooms. He's not going to be doing... Them people who doing the videos, they don't live in Canton. They not from Canton 9 times out of 10. That's just what it is. He had to get out. He had to get out. I don't even know Freddie Gibbs' story on how he made it. I have no idea. But guess what? Ain't nobody made it out of that same city since. And I'm pretty sure that nigga got the fuck out of there to pursue his dreams. I'm pretty sure that's what the fuck happened. Last example I'll give. Lil Skies is from Bumblefuck, PA. Last time I checked, he from someplace in PA that like nobody know. Lil Skies. Lil Skies drove to like Chicago or wherever the fuck he drove. He drove way out to do a Lyrical Lemonade video. He set up a Lyrical Lemonade video, paid the bread. He paid the guap to get the Lyrical Lemonade video done. His dad used to be a rapper as well. He helped him fund the shit. He was really like on some manager shit, really helping his son out, Lil Skies. They did the Lyrical Lemonade video. That's a big internet platform. Boom, he gets on. That's the way that niggas have to play the game when you're not from one of them cities where niggas is just getting on. Now, again, you got to remember, I said this is for all the places right now. Like currently, right now, at this moment. In New York, the game was completely, or in the 90s, the game was completely different. And it didn't matter how hard you rapped in Cleveland. Didn't matter how hard you rapped in Cleveland, Ohio, nigga. Bone Thugs had to go and catch a flight. They talked to Eazy-E in Cleveland. He said they was going to sign him. He said he was going to sign Bone Thugs. They was not answering the line. They was not fucking with them once he left the city. They went out on a limb, took whatever money they had. They ran up on Eazy in motherfucking Compton or LA, wherever the fuck they ran up on him at. And I'm not saying that like they ran up on him on no gangster shit. But they was like, yo, what's up with that deal? We came out. He respected that shit. He signed him. We got the Thuggish Ruggish Bone. We got a whole legacy for Bone Thugs, some of the biggest artists in the world. That's what they had to do to get their deal, Fat Joe. They didn't have to go to the Apollo. They had to catch a flight, not knowing where Eazy was going to be, chase Eazy down. And they was already doing music. I got the faces of death. They already was doing local music. That local music was never going to get them nowhere. Because Eazy-E didn't hear a demo and say, this is... No, they rap for him. When you look at the 90s specifically, New York rappers, as far as getting a career in rap, had it way easier than anybody else in the country that wasn't from LA. These are just facts. That's what it is.